morning and happy holidays. It's my pleasure to spend the next 55 minutes of this holiday with you here on Business Morning. And because you're not at work, I believe that I will have your total attention today. Well, welcome to the program. Let's do some business. Oil prices fell on Monday as concerns about rising interest rates, the global economy, and outlook for fuel demand outweighed support from the prospect of tighter supplies and OPEC Plus supply cuts. Brent crude slipped 75 cents to $80.91 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $77.13. That's down 17 cents, almost 1%. Both contracts fell more than 5% last week, their first weekly drop in 5, as U.S. implied gasoline demand fell from a year ago, fueling worries of a recession at the world's top oil supplier. Weak U.S. economic data and disappointing corporate earnings from the tech sector sparked growth concerns and risk aversion among investors. Central banks from the United States to Britain and Europe are all expected to raise interest rates when they meet in the first week of next month, that's May, seeking to tackle the high inflation. China's bumpy economic recovery post-COVID-19 also clouded its oil demand outlook. Although Chinese customs data shows that the world's top crude importer brought in record volumes in March, China's imports from top supplier Russia and Saudi Arabia topped 2 million barrels a day each. In the global grain space, a lot of things happening there from Russia, Ukraine, and the EU. But Chicago wheat climbed for the first time in 4 sessions today after Russia threatened to terminate a grain deal allowing Ukrainian export, although gains were trimmed by forecast of much-needed rains in the United States winter crop areas. The talk of rain for the Kansas region over the near term, plus a sluggish export pace, are factors that kept sellers active. The most active wheat contract on the Chicago Board of Trade was up 0.3% at $6.75 a bushel, and a corn lost 0.5% to $6.12 a bushel, and soybean was down 0.1% to $14.47 a bushel. Grain markets are facing uncertainty over exports from war-torn Ukraine. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev had said that if the G7 moved to ban export to Russia, Moscow would respond by terminating the Black Sea grain drain that enables vital exports of grain from Ukraine. Corn futures are under pressure. Positive outlook for U.S. planting, and in the soybean market, a drop in prices due to abundant local supplies is making Brazil an attractive origin, with at least 2 vessels carrying a combined 79,150 tons of Brazilian beans to the United States in the next few days. Well, this is in Nigeria now. The attempt to increase non-oil exports, this time the location is China, has received a boost with the unveiling of the Nigerian Export Trade House. Last week, we did speak to the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council when he was there in China. This is the report that captures what he went there to do.
Officials of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council and the Nigerian ambassador to China arrived the venue for the launch of the Nigeria Export Trade House, located in Changsha, Hunan Province, to kickstart a process that will see to the export of Nigerian products to China and other countries in Asia. In this 6,000 metric tons capacity warehouse are bags of ginger and sesame seeds recently shipped to China, which will serve as a hub for all export produce within Asia.
The trade house concept is aimed at, among other things, improving sustainable trade flows between Nigeria and China, facilitating the growth of non-oil export volume and enhancing Nigeria's non-oil export performance, increasing the share of Nigerian products in target markets, among other factors.
Recent statistics of the 2022 Trade Performance Report shows that China ranks 3rd in the list of top 10 countries with high trade volume with Nigeria. While this is seen as commendable, concerns of how to close the gap in terms of export trade from Nigeria is raised. While the Nigerian government is promising not to rest on its oars, but to strive towards closing the gap in trade balances, the Chinese government plans better trade policies for Nigeria.
We can do much more by taking advantage of the framework on trade and investment promotion. Especially, it is now abundantly clear that Nigeria is Africa's largest and most populous country and an important trade partner to China.
Hybrid rice technology is well known in the African continent. Over 10,000 participants in Africa have received foreign aid training.
The launch of the Nigerian Export Trade House presents another opportunity for Nigerian exporters to grow their businesses, but there are areas where they want to rest.
The establishment of this trade house, the Nigerian Export Trade House in China, it's one of the major milestones that we believe is going to bridge the trade deficit that we have always experienced over the years.
Nigeria and China have now enjoyed over 50 years of diplomatic relations, with trade topping the list of its bilateral relations. The launch of this trade house in China, which is the fourth across the continent, is seen as a further boost to this drive.
All right, so that's in China, making the most of that. Of course, beyond the celebration and the cutting of the ribbons is the impact on non-oil exports. As we know that China is a major trading partner of Nigeria, but I mean, we need to do it the other way and get Nigerian products out there. But that's a conversation for another day. Now, in recent times, the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, that's NIMASA, has been commended for its role in the Gulf of Guinea, which has led to the reduction of pirate activities in the region. Also, the Director General of NIMASA, Dr. Bashir Jamo, has been very active these days, and he said that Nigeria's vast, underutilized blue economy offers huge opportunities for growth and development and overcome its present economic challenges. Well, thank God we have him joining us this morning to share more on this and a whole lot more. Dr. Bashir Jamo, good morning. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Good morning, Annie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
You're looking bright today.
Thank you so much. Maybe it's a holiday, so I mean, I can't be at home, but I'm in a holiday mood.
Oh, that's great. So it's always good to have holiday.
Yes.
That's great.
All right, so NIMASA has been commended for its contribution to curbing piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. What can we attribute this to, and what's the long-term plan to ensure that it's sustained?
Well, the attribution to this is very simple. We have synergy now. In those days, we used to have, a kind of friction. The major players in terms of enhancing this maritime security is Nigerian Navy. We deals with non-kinetic operations, while they did with the kinetic operations. They are the one at the field. They are the one to ensure they respond to any attack. They are the one to ensure that they clean up all the necessary mess that these younger Nigerians that are making. So today, what we are seeing, we have a kind of synergy. In the United States of America, when they are going to attack 9/11, most of the security agencies, they are aware that there's going to be an attack in American soil. But the information and the intelligence reports, each FBI, CIA, they kept the information to their chest. And before you know, these people attack the American soil. So what we did is to ensure that we have cooperation, coordination, collaboration, communications among the players. And not only Nigeria, but also the entire world in terms of maritime security. Because if you look at maritime, it's an international business. American ships get to Nigeria, Europe, and every other thing. So what we did, in addition to these collaborations among the players in Nigeria, we have shared Gulf of Guinea also. That we have a European Union, we have Britain, we have France, we have Denmark, all in the Gulf of Guinea. to ensure they help and assist in achieving this. That's why we have this long, over 1.5 years now, 30 years record of maritime security. So thank God to these collaborative efforts, and thank God to Nigerian Navy, which they are working hard. Now, on the issue of sustainability, the sustainability of this, if you can recollect, in June 2020, Mr. President, commissioned the Deep Blue Project. And after commissioning the Deep Blue Project, that is part of our own assistance in terms of our own mandate of maintaining maritime security. And the players, Nigerian Army, Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Air Force, they are dealing with all the platforms we have. For the air, we have Nigerian Air Force. For the water, we have Nigerian Navy. For the land, we have Nigerian Army, so we coordinated. So we have a sustainability plan. As you are aware, in this country, the major problem is not acquiring the asset, but maintaining the asset. So every year, we prepare a budget for sustainability plan, and we present it to the National Assembly to make sure that we maintain the men and women that are managing those and operating those platforms. Two, we make sure that we maintain and manage the platforms. So the sustainability plan is there on ground to make sure that that thing works in accordance with the manufacturer's standard. And then secondly, we continue to collaborate. You always see me with the Nigerian Navy, sometimes with the Nigerian Army. We adjust our own plan and we deal with them. And in my agency, we have a division that we call Maritime Guard Command. So sometimes we don't have to go through the rigorous protocol or bureaucracy to meet the Chief of Naval Staff. So we have a detachment of Nigerian Navy within the agency. So that also helps greatly. Now, finally, the issue of maritime insecurity does not lie only in fighting those criminals, but also looking at the immediate and remote causes of this. We have poverty, we have lack of employment, we have young Nigerians that they are not going to school, they don't have the time to go to school, or they don't have the resources to go to school. So what we do, we introduce a number of issues. In addition to the bomb, guns, rackets, so we are now putting a kind of palliative, we call it carrot and stick. If we have the Nigerian Navy, or we have the laws that the federal government introduced, FOMO Act, Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime-Related Offences Act, if you arrest you, we send you to jail. If in the course of fighting and you get killed, then you know that. But so we now introduce carrot. For those who are willing to go to school, we have what we call National Seafarers Development Program. In the last 2-3 years, every year we send about 400 to 450 to schools abroad. Copying Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, where we are going to export our own younger generations to go and work in the various maritime administrations and ships all over the world.
So Dr. Jamo, very interesting, but one thing that comes to my mind, and I'm glad you talked about sustainability, we're on the verge of changing administration. And sometimes, we hear of these good things that happened, and then in a couple of months or years down the line, we say, oh, when it was this administration, we used to have this. So talking about sustainability in that area, to ensure that even with a change of administration or change of leadership in IMASA or whatever, that this continues in spite of the person who holds an office.
Yeah, we are building institutions, and you should know that the administration of General Buhari is APC administration, and the administration of Bola Tinubu also is an APC administration. So whatever we are going to do, we have to lay a foundation. Foundations has been laid. It's very difficult for someone to change it. So, and I believe if we didn't improve on what we put in place, we will not go back from what we have in place. So that one you don't have any fear about.
Okay.
I'm 100% sure that the incoming government will do more.
Will retain.
Will continue to
sustain.
do more. Yes.
Okay. So you talked about underutilized potentials in the blue economy.
Yes.
What areas specifically would you say are underutilized?
Oh, and there are so many areas. You take, for example, fishing industry. If you take fishery alone, the value chain that creates the fishing industry is enough for Nigeria. The blue economy, provides 350 million jobs worldwide. So it's left for every country to stimulate what they can maximize from the 350 million jobs, only the blue economy alone. So if you take fishery, you take wind energy. Now we are having problem with energy. If you take wind energy, also that one is underutilized. Take even short ferry services. When you travel to Dubai, you go, you see they collect your dollars, they put you in a small caravan or a small ship, you have your lunch. Less than 30 minutes, you collected your dollars and go. But here you go to our own coastal line, you will not see that one is also underutilized. You see packaging, you look at the oil bunkering. We have over 110,000 ships coming into Nigerian and going out of Nigerian waters per annum. You ask yourself, if I have car and I go to the filling station, I buy fuel. Now these ships were over 110,000 that comes to Nigeria and go out of Nigeria. Where do they bunker? When you say oil bunkering, common Nigerian will tell you that that's their... No, that is legal bunkering. How do you... To bunker, to foil those ships, it's another business. It's another economy on itself. Today, less than 10% of Nigerians, they have the capacity to provide oil bunkers for 110,000 ships that are coming to Nigeria. So if you look at that and say you are going to develop it, it's okay. Ship repairs. Where do we repair our ships? The ship repair industry, they continue to go down. So what we are saying, we have to structure, we have to strategize, we have to give a timeline to see how we can build all these industries. Now, apart from that, like insurance now, all the cargoes that are coming to Nigeria, you must insure it. What is the percentage of Nigerian insurance companies that are getting from this kind of goods? Take the issue of packaging. We package a lot of things. So do we do packages here? Most of our export things that we export are less, attractive because of packaging.
So what's wrong? What's stopping the price? Because there are so many business people who are looking for, we have to make money from. Is it the law? Is it bureaucracy? Or is it the capital, to enter into this market? Is it too high?
All those are factors. But the major factor is sea blindness. We are sea blindness. We don't know, we don't see what is among around our seas and oceans. Not only seas and oceans. If you look at our coastal line, you think of the states, the neutral states we have. But the definition of the Supreme Court, we have 8 neutral states in the country. That is those who are attached to our own seas and oceans water that are connected. Now you have 8. We have 28 states that are linked with our inland waterways. 28 states. 28 plus 8 make it 36. That goes to show you the entire Nigeria, they are linked with water. So whatever happen in our seas and ocean, it also happen in our inland waterways. The things that survive in the oceans and seas, it can also survive in the inland waterways because water is water. You understand? So, and these 28 states that are linked with the inland waterways, it also transcends to 5 African countries. You can link Nigeria to 5 African countries. So what are there? What do we gain and benefit is the issue. That's what we call sea blindness. We don't know all those things. That's why now we are now going ahead to educate Nigerians to understand. Look, this blue called water. In those days, we said no blue, no green. No water, no agriculture. But now, what we are trying to say, there is blindness in this. We have economy called blue. So let us harness and maximize the utilization of our blue.
So Nimasa should open the eyes of Nigerians.
No, the Nigerians, they are now coming to realize, that. And we are not only opening the eyes of Nigeria. And then it's very difficult to build your own country with your own resources. Look at Dubai. They built Dubai with foreign direct investment. So what we are after now, after getting, you see the blue economy, we are going to look at it in a 4 dimension: national, regional, continental, and international. So by the time we are going to any stage, we have to educate, we sensitize, we do seminars and do other things to educate people and what, so that people can now choose the comparative advantage area that they are going to corner and get what.
All right,
I hope you will be one of those.
I hope so too. Well, I mean, we're supposed to let you go now, but I can't help but ask this. In November, Oil Marketers Association did talk about asking Nimasa to implement receiving charges in naira and not in dollar. Has that been effective?
No, we don't have any business with oil marketers. Our acts provide that we should collect 3% levy from freight and, not international marketers or local marketers. Freight and those international marketers have ships. The person that earns freight is the ship owner. So we are dealing with the ship owner. And the international currency that we deal with in the maritime is dollar. So if you own a ship, you are the one to pay us, not the international marketers, not the local marketers that they are coming to struggle. I think they should go and look at the act. So if we earn our revenue in dollar, in naira, for instance, the Cabotage Act provides we should earn 2% from the cabotage trade. Those who get their own income in naira, we charge them 2% in naira. If you are a ship owner, you earn your own revenue in dollar. You pay us in dollar. Oh, what is the issue? There's no issue. We don't have any issue with the...
All right. All right, Dr. Bashir Jabo, the Director General of Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety, thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of the holiday.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now let's move to another national issue. It's the Nigeria Sovereign Wealth Fund. They have released the 2022 financial details of the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority, which recorded a 33% profit decline in the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Meanwhile, the government has injected about $1.8 billion of Nigeria's surplus income from crude oil sales into that fund so far. What does this tell us about the country's state? We have Michael Ango, his partner, Tax Advisory and Regulatory Services with Anderson, to share his thoughts and findings on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Ango, and happy holidays to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm great. So we saw the financials of the SWF. We saw a decrease, 33% decrease in the profits for 2022. Should we be worried? Are we in a good stance?
So I'll give you I'll say yes and I'll say no. Let me start from no. I think for the benefit of our viewers, I think it's important that we understand what the Sovereign Wealth Fund or the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority is. It was set up in 2011 by its act, basically to, create a savings for Nigeria, a kind of buffer, and then of course do some other things like improve infrastructure, and then have some kind of stabilization fund for Nigeria in terms of economic distress. Initial seed funding was $1 billion, which in my view was quite small. But if you recall, at that time, there were a lot of conflicts between the state and the federal government as to even the constitutionality of the agency. So to that extent, I think that the concept of the NSIA is a very laudable one, and we must commend the agency itself, or the authority, I would say, for constantly, bringing out its results publicly and sharing it, of course, in line with the principles of transparency and accountability and all of that. One thing that we must also commend the authority for is that it's managed its succession seamlessly. As you recall, the first, or the pioneer MD, left last year, and there was an internal succession, and that went very smoothly. But as to these results, I think we should first look at what the positives are. So the positives is that, for the last 10 years, there has been consistent positive results for the agency over the last 10 years of its operation. Of course, its net assets also grew, I think, by about 10%, to about $1 trillion naira, and then, of course, there was some increase in revenue from, I think, interest income, infrastructure, business, and one or two also, income lines. But the big elephant in the room, of course, is the 34% decline in total comprehensive income, as you've mentioned it. So to the extent that, the NSIA was set up to manage savings for the country, it should be of worry to us that there's such a steep decline of 34% in just one financial year. But in mitigation, the MD in his press conference did mention certain reasons why that decline occurred. And he termed an acronym, which he said was VUCA. This is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and then, of course, the ambiguity of the markets in which they invested. He also did mention things like, the China COVID lockdowns, the Russia-Ukraine war, and of course, internal factors or local factors like, rise in petroleum products, inflation, geopolitical issues, and all of that. So to that extent, you can then probably situate the decline in profits, as it were. But to the extent that you're looking to the NSIA to always turn in a profit and also continue to contribute to the overall economic well-being of the country, then yes, you may say that these results create a bit of a concern, especially for the shareholders who are the federal government that holds about 46%, the states 36%, local governments about 18% thereabout. So they should be worried, of course. The question is then, what should be done going forward?
Yeah, before we come to what should be done going forward, we know that the NSIA is funded mainly from surplus from sale of Nigeria's crude. We see what's happening to the price of Brent, especially as it concerns us in the global space. And we're also talking about ending the subsidy regime. How does that affect the NSIA?
Okay, so let me correct you. The NSI is not primarily funded by, excess crude revenues. It did receive its initial seed funding from the excess crude revenues, but over the last few years, what the NSI has done is to try to, fund its own operations from its profits and all of that. Yes, I think that ordinarily, given the impressive or the high crude prices over the last year or two that we saw in the global market due to, of course, Russia, Ukraine, and some of the other issues, would have expected that Nigeria would have earned more crude dollars, and some of these crude dollars could have found their way into the hands of the NSI. But we know the issues we deal with in Nigeria in terms of, theft of crude and all of that. So Nigeria has not really benefited in the way that other large crude producers like Russia, like Qatar, and like Saudi Arabia have benefited. So to that extent, you cannot put that on the NSIA. But I think that in the same press conference, the MD did mention certain areas which the NSIA was looking to. He mentioned the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. He mentioned, of course, investments in infrastructure, gas utilization, the ammonia plant, and all of that. So some of these projects, look like projects that should be viable in the, long term. But the truth about investments, again, is that, investors always want to see immediate returns. And I do not think that, the federal or state governments, would be waiting, for 10 or 15-year investments to mature. So I think the challenge for the NSI is to find those short-term investments that can quickly turn a profit for them. Of course, in that same press conference, he did mention that the drop in revenue or income was largely due to the, Future Generations Fund and the Stabilization Fund, which didn't see the same type of growth that they had seen in the last year or in previous years. So I think the challenge for this new management is to see how, they can invest in those short-term, assets and then look to improve or turn around the profit as quick as possible, while, of course, still focusing on some of these long-term investments in infrastructure, in agri, as it were. So yes, there is a lot of work to be done. And I think and I believe that, the management of the NSI should be up to the task.
So, I mean, because even the short-term investments you talked about, they're also exposed to, the macroeconomic realities, which seems to be hitting everybody. So whatever decision they take at the end of the day, I think it still has a national impact, on Nigeria, on them.
You're absolutely right. And of course, he did mention, that one of the factors was also the general tightening of monetary policy. He also mentioned inflation. He mentioned the cost of petroleum products, food inflation in Nigeria, and that all this, stifled growth. We must understand that some of the investments of the NSI are also local investments. So not all of these investments are done in other jurisdictions. Some of these investments are local investments. So naturally, if the economy is not growing at a particular rate, then you do not expect that any investments in that same economy will see significant growth. There's some investment that have been done in healthcare, for example, the cancer center at the Lute, and all of that. Some of these investments, could also be, monetized to the extent that, you are able to, of course, attract significant patronage of these things. You look at things like aviation infrastructure in Nigeria, which we know is very poor. We've seen the Qatar Sovereign Wealth Fund invest in Heathrow, for example. We've seen them invest in some other airports. We've seen also the Qatar Sovereign Investment Agency invest in property in the United Kingdom, and they've turned around significant profits. So maybe what the NSI needs to begin to look at is to look at investments that will be largely immune, or at least that will not suffer from significant distortions within the local economy. But of course, the agency or the authority exists in Nigeria, and so whatever happens in Nigeria would likely impact
exactly
how its investments turn out.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Angu, Partner, Tax Advisory and Regulatory Services with Anderson.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's take a breather now. When we come back, talking about inflation and what it has to do with the economy, how it affects microfinance banks. We'll find out after the break here on Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. Still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Now, to curb inflation, we've seen central banks globally continue to raise interest rates. And obviously, Nigeria is not immune to it, which means that there's a surge in the cost of servicing bank loans. Well, not good for businesses, not good for manufacturers, because they have to pay more. But what about the banks? Let's have a little bit of understanding from that perspective with the Managing Director of Edfin Microfinance, Mrs. Bumi Lawson, joins us virtually. Good morning, Mrs. Lawson. Thank you so much for your time. Happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Good, Sam. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you, Mrs. Lawson.
Everyone.
Good morning. So we hear businesses, those who have loans to service, complaining of this hike in interest rate because obviously they have to cough out more money than they used to. But how is it affecting the other side of the divide, which is you guys, the banks?
Yeah, so the economy those economic indicators are tough. Inflation is going up, so CBN is increasing the MPR rate. So lending cost is also high, because when you look at the value for money, you have to lend to make sure that you cover your cost of borrowing, cost of operations as well. So a lot of SMEs, yes, typically raise their interest rates are high, but it is the factors in the economy that contribute to that. Some of the things that some banks have done, including my bank, is to have separate sort of loan funds for different types of companies. So you may have some concessionary loans. So for instance, when we fund education, we have a loan that gives a single digit interest rate, but that's only for concessionary schools, affordable, where we think that we are providing support. But typically, you will find that interest rates in most recent terms have certainly gone up. As the MPR has been increased by the central bank, lending rates have to go up. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned education, because I think 2 weeks ago I did speak to an entrepreneur in the education sector here in Nigeria, and of course he did talk about the squeeze that they are also facing. How much of funding or how much of demand do you get from the education sector?
Yeah, so we get significant amounts of demand. Nigeria's population is growing, so the demand for education is increasing. And while government is investing, somewhat in the education sector, is not able to meet the demand given the increased growth rate that is happening and the demand for services. So banks like us that focus on education provide loans to schools, to the education sector, EdTech, their vendors, to be able to enable them increase access to education, so they build more classrooms or provide electronic training. They're able to pay their teachers, especially during the holidays when they are not getting school fees and things like that. So funding education increases access to education, and it is critical for economic development. As someone said, they've never seen an illiterate, wealthy country. So you need more of our population who have access to schools, especially primary and secondary, to be able to learn to read and write. And so funding is really in demand. But COVID did put a bumper on the education sector. During COVID, education, schools were closed down and so on. And because of the economic hardships, a lot of parents are not able to afford the school fees, especially in the private sector. So even the public sector now has seen an increased demand for the school, because education, at least basic education, is free. So the education sector is somewhat struggling, but I do feel that once the economy starts to grow back, you will find increased demand for education finance, to build schools, but also to fund education, including those who want to even access education abroad. You want to study in any of the top universities abroad, there's funding also that is being provided to enable you pay your school fees, travel, and so on and so forth. So for us, it's all about providing access to education. So now we see more increased demand for consumer loans, which is to pay tuition fees. Before, a lot of our demand was for the schools, where you are building more classrooms and putting in, technology for schools to be able to serve their pupils.
In essence, you're encouraging the japa from Nigeria. And I'm sure your rate is really high. Microfinance banks are not very friendly.
Well, it is affordable. In fact, what we did was to partner with international institutions that do international student loans. So you only repay the loan after you graduate and you are working. So whether you come back. So one of the things I would say is true that people look at the Japa syndrome as controversial. Is it good or is not good? And I normally ask them to look at Nigerians that we have in diaspora today. Would they say they are not contributing to the Nigerian economy? They are significantly, both in remittances, but also in the acquisition of knowledge, bringing back skills, and even better methodology to work. China and India did it. It's also projected that by 2030, Nigeria will be the third largest supplier of international students worldwide. So these are things that I feel that will continue to ensure that the demand for international education continues to grow. So that's what, and I feel that Nigerians in diaspora have even given back to Nigeria. There are some I could name. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala came back and became our coordinating minister for finance. Segun Agaga, so many people. We did a study of the largest companies in Nigeria, those quoted on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and 65% of them acquired an international degree, either first degree or postgraduate degree internationally. So it has benefit, long-term benefits. It depends on how we use it. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Lawson, trying to change our perspective that Japa is not always wrong, but okay, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that fresh perspective. Managing Director of EdFeed Microfinance, Mrs. Bumi Lawson. Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Ini.
All right,
Bye.
You're welcome. Okay, so the markets are closed today, at least in Nigeria, but that doesn't mean that we will not have what's going on or how the market closed on Thursday. How many days to? But anyway, Will is here, so she will help us remember. Will, it's a long holiday.
Yes, it's a long holiday for them, not for us.
Well, for the market.
For the market.
Will, you chose this job, so you stick to the rules of the job.
So they decided to go on a break. The market, money never sleeps. Money never sleeps.
I know.
So, the market did close on Thursday, but we didn't see very good, performance for the equities market.
Even for the week.
Yeah, for the week, it was.
I think it was more than 1%
yes,
down.
about 1.08% down for equities, and we're just wondering, investors are still cashing in on money, taking profit where they can, even though the dividends are being declared, and mouth-watering dividends are coming in. But investors, I think they just want to know a play. I mean, they're playing safe, taking their money and putting their money.
I think we need to get into the mind of investors and
it is
and
very
know how
important.
they're thinking.
It is very important.
It's been like I think 2 weeks now or so. We've been having
subdued trading activities in the market.
So we need to find out what's going on.
Yes, Bonism, I need to go to the NGX and send me there. So we're just going to start off with the FX market. We saw that Nigeria's forex reserve made a U-turn back into negative territory, which wasn't expected. Well, as expected, it's recorded a decline last week, and data from the central bank showed that the country's FX reserves fell by $79.77 million week on week to close at $35.33 billion. We're still going below that. I hope we don't get to the 34 billion naira mark here. We're losing the 39 billion naira mark that we're known for, the 40 that we started off last year with. But this is at April the 19th. Now, however, we saw a bit of positive sentiments in the FX trading market at FNDQ exchange. It was mostly positive for last week. We saw total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forwards and futures markets rose about 14.12%. That's week on week to over $393 million. Now, further breaking that down, we saw total value of transactions at the I&E window rising by 10.12% to $393.85 million. Now, while transactions at the FX derivatives market rose by 77.53% to $40.05 million. Also, we saw value at the naira. We saw some appreciation there, though it was flat at 0.02%. That's about 1 kobo addition to 462 naira. Closed at 462 naira, 32 kobo against the dollar, as compared to 462 naira, 33 kobo it closed in the previous week. Bonds market, we saw a bit of uptrend in yields for the bonds market, mixed sentiments in the treasury bills market, some yields dipping a bit in that space. We're going to talk to Caleb Alimi, he's the chief dealer at Fixed Income Providence Bank, to give us more insights as to what happened in the market last week. Good morning, Caleb. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Will. Thank you for having me.
Now, Caleb, what sentiments can you say were behind investors' play in the fixed income market last week?
Last week was largely, a bit of cherry picking of, treasury bills at the short end of the curve. We did see interest in the 1-year paper, we saw that decline from the stop rate where it closed at the previous auction at 14.5, and we saw it decline to around 12%. Like I said, it's largely, investors looking to lock in some risk-free assets, and that's where the interest is currently at the moment, the 1-year Treasury bill paper.
Do you think expectations for this week, what should we look out for?
This week is going to be very interesting. It's quite interesting that last week, despite the fact that market, opened on a negative territory as per interbank liquidity, we're expecting quite a huge inflow into the market this week. We're expecting over around $1 trillion to come into the market, so we expect that to spur demand. There's also a Treasury bills primary auction on Wednesday. We expect that to be also very, very positive. We expect a slight decline in the stop rate from 14.5, but to still remain around the 14% handle, based off the fact of the huge inflows that we're expecting. Firstly, from the federal allocation, also from bond maturity, April 2023 bond maturity, and also bond coupons that will be coming in this week. All of that should flood the market with over $1 trillion that will take the market out of negative interbank liquidity and into positive territory, and therefore spur further demand in the 1-year Treasury bill and subsequently in the bonds market as well.
Before we just let you go, let's just go back to the bond. We had a bond auction last week, didn't we? Could you tell us more about that? What transpired in the market at the auction?
The bond market, the DMO sold close to 500 billion at that auction at a maximum rate of 15.8% on the 30-year paper, which was the 2050 years. And so it was a bit of mixed feelings in the sense that the short-term papers, the 2028 maturity and the 2032 maturity, saw very poor subscription. However, the 2042 and the 2050 saw decent subscription, and we've continued to see that the DMO actually prefers loading its debt at the long end of the curve, the 2042 and the 2050. That's exactly what happened at that last bond auction.
We'll look forward to how the market plays. Today is a public holiday, Caleb. We'll see how investors will play, especially you're talking about the money hitting the market, and there's going to be a lot of liquidity for investors to play. And probably we'll see some, downtrend in yields in the bond space, but we'll watch out and see tomorrow how it plays out. Thank you so much, Caleb Alimi, Chief Dealer, Fixed
Thank you for having me.
Providence Bank, for joining us, sharing your perspective. So, Ini, the markets, you said it all, we're just expecting more money to come in, especially for the Treasury bills auction that's going to take place. More liquidity, because there's been a depressed liquidity in the system. It's been tight.
All the spaces, all the markets
have been, like everyone's choked up, and it's like, where is the money going to come out from? And so we're just hoping that, with that, there's a bit more money to play with in the market. And but the only downside of that is that interest going to drop down for investors, and that's the only thing. But equities market, I just want to look at that, but I don't want to look at that. But I'm looking at it. That's what it closed with.
Oh, you don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice, but it's over 1% down. But we're not past the 51 trillion naira mark.
At some point when we were 51,100, I was scared that we're going to get to 50,
and probably go to 49. But I just hope that doesn't happen anytime soon.
Well, we have lost that 28 trillion naira.
Yes, we did lose that, but on the back of investors are still playing it strong. And if you look at the market, there's still a bit of momentum, even if it has, though it's been up and down. It's been like a roller coaster in the market, ding dong. But investors come in today, they play strong tomorrow.
Transco has it stopped its effect?
Transco is still rolling high there. And, with the volume we've been seeing, last week's volume has been a result of investors' interest in Transco, and Femi Otedola coming into that space has driven that market really up. Now we're seeing Transco.
I think one of the investors we have to get into his mind is Mr. Otedola. He did Gary Good, he did FBN Holding.
Is it the next Elon Musk? I ask.
All right, Will. Thank you so much. So let's go to London now and see what's going on there. We have Juliana joining us from our studio there. Juliana, good morning. Well, yesterday I saw this news and I was like, well, thank God we're going to speak to Juliana this morning. A new emergency alert system. I know also last week we did hear that threat of attack from Ukraine on UK infrastructure. I wonder if this is connected. What's this about?
Good morning, Innie. Not connected, actually, but yes, the biggest public communications exercise in its history took place yesterday in the UK at about 3 p.m. I was one of the very many millions of Britons who, I would say, between about 2:50 p.m. to about 3, you got this 10-second, very piercing signal from your phone. And according to Oliver Dowden, who is the new Deputy Prime Minister in this country, this is an emergency alert to let Britons know if they are close to a wildfire or if they're close to any areas of flooding. You mentioned Ukraine, so I presume perhaps in the future it would also alert us to a terror strike. As I said, it was very piercing, lasted 10 seconds. This morning the government said they are going to probe inconsistencies with the alert, because whilst many people were disturbed when they were taking part in the London Marathon, and also there was a BBC News presenter who, whilst on air, his phone signal went off. There were millions of people who didn't receive the signal. I think most of those people were on the 3 networks. So both the 3 network bosses and the government have said they'll be checking in on that. But yes, we don't need a reminder of that signal. It was very piercing, and it has been repeated ever since on all UK news channels.
Well, at least you have an alert, emergency alert from the government. Well, let's look at the week now. What are the expectations for the week?
Yeah, busy week this week. This morning, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, is wooing, shall we say, about 200 business execs, all the big businesses in the UK, at the City of London. The government are hosting a Business Connect conference just to try and regain some trust and friendship with the business community. It seemed to have kind of tethered away under Boris Johnson and Liz Truss's tenure. Lots of sound bites are going to be coming out of that this week. Also, as well, strikes, more strikes again. Unfortunately, I'll be working a lot of time from home because teachers are striking. On Thursday, there will be coordinated action with public sector service workers too. Again, this is all about pay, job conditions, teachers not happy. So they'll be downing tools on Thursday. And then we're going to get a slew of corporate updates, most notably banks. I know Credit Suisse have just reported their earnings this morning. We're going to get in lots on that, and that's obviously going to be important because interest rates are high, the cost of borrowing is high. Has this been affecting the bottom line for banks? We shall just have to wait and see. But a busy week, as always, for us, Innie, even though it's a national holiday in Nigeria today.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Busy week indeed, but we'll talk to you at 1:30 to see which of those information we'll have by then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it's almost time to go, but we can't go without at least mentioning that the Fear Greed Index for the crypto space is neutral, remains neutral from Friday, and losing some of those gains that we were celebrating, the greed that we've had for a couple of days now. Bitcoin has also gone down to 27,701.02. That's about 0.37% increase. And then Ethereum also is 1,000. That's a reduction that we see there, 0.36. BNB ADA, and then it looks like profit taking is not just in the equities market in Nigeria, but it's also spreading right here. So no market stays up forever, right? That's the normal phenomenon. But thank you so much for being a part of the program today. It's the first one. We have 4 more to go. That means we have 55 in 4 places, and we intend to make the most of it here on Business Morning. 1:30, Willie Bong will be here to give you an update from the world of business, so do join us then, and we promise to make every moment significant. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. I'm Innie John Mekwa.